Let that start. Okay, there we go. All right, so before we jump into Teams though, let me get a sense from you guys, and I'm going to ask you please to come off mute and talk to me about what stood out to you today. What you know, and it doesn't have to be anything, you know, earth-shattering. It's just, you know, what stood out to you today? What do you think? Oh, that's great. I'm going to take that with me. Yeah, let's hear from you guys.
Hi. Can you hear me, Troy?
Yep, we can.
Hi, Tajinder here. I'm from the School of Languages. Hello.
Yeah, sorry, I was having trouble with my mute there. Yeah, fire away. What did you want to say?
I really like the concept where you showed how you could get a table up on the Word document and get the kids engaged in the class and see the progress as they are doing. So yeah, and I really like the idea of Minecraft as well because I do primary classes, so that's a good way of engaging the kids with the curriculum without even like them knowing that they are learning while they're playing.
Yeah, great. Brilliant. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Somebody else?
I think I'm going to explore Minecraft a little bit more and how I can utilise that along across my language and as using the Word documents as well to engage, particularly the 6, 7s with Japanese and stuff. So
cool. Yeah, look, we didn't, we're probably not going to get time to go into OneNote, but OneNote is really cool for that sort of collaboration, much better than Word. So I do encourage you to explore OneNote and explore it through that education.microsoft.com website, some of the courses, because that's much better for that sort of collaborative experience. Great, thank you. Someone else? So what stood out to you today? What do you think? Yeah, I'm going to take that away. Yeah, I want to use that more. Can you see my puppy here hanging around? Come on, Chatty Bunch. One more person and then we'll move on.
I'll go just to get things moving along.
Sean, I'm not sure if you're speaking again, but you are muted at the moment.
We've got two computers happening in this room, that's why. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear.
Okay, cool. No, so we were just talking about in our team that we're going to be using the OneDrive a lot more because we're more familiar and much more comfortable using the Google Drive and Google Word and stuff like that. And we're noticing some very large similarities between those two platforms. So we're feeling very confident that we're going to be able to use Microsoft 365 the way that it's designed to be used. And sort of we're going to immediately start working on transferring our knowledge there to this platform and doing that pretty much straight away. So yeah, we're confident that we can use this because of our previous experience with very similar platforms, and yeah, we're just going to do that.
Excellent, good. Whoever your STP coordinator is and or your principal, if you want to, I'm working with a school at the moment that has moved successfully from Google over to Microsoft and, you know, moving into Teams and everything. So I've had some experience in that space. So if you guys want to reach out to me, we can do a Teams call and talk through some of the things, just little things that I learned along the way, that you can download your entire Google Drive and then it turns all the docs into Word docs and things like that. You can drag it straight into OneDrive and yeah, it's actually really, really simple.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because that's actually what I've just been trying to do in our lunch break. And I found that wasn't really working for me. So I would be really interested in touching base with you about that at another time because I've just tried to do that and it wasn't working for me. So
yeah, sure. So yeah, we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Last chance. Anybody else before we move on? No? Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about Teams for Education then. I'm just going to, again, share my screen. What I'm not going to do today is I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the school team. I will a little bit, I certainly will, but what we're going to spend more time is talking about how to use it in class, because largely the audience that I have today is made up of teachers, but also because the school team will actually be addressed in more detail in the Middle Leaders course in the STP, which is the eLearning Leaders Institute. So if you're wanting to know more about Teams and how to set that up in your school for both students and teachers, then that's definitely the course to be a part of. But that being said, let's jump in and have a look. So the thing about Teams, and I'm going to do a little bit of a shallow dive into Teams as a platform. Teams is almost like its own operating system, basically for your work environment. So, but then interestingly enough, it's cross operating systems and cross platforms. So you'll have a similar Teams experience whether you're on a Mac, whether you're on a PC, whether you're coming in on a browser. We've got Teams apps for the iPad and for the phone and that kind of thing as well. But your PC, Mac, and web-based, even Chromebook experience is very, very similar, and that's intentional because we want it to be the one hub for your work environment where everything is connected. Excuse me, my dog is scratching, and so I'm going to have to let her out. As important as you people are. Here you go, Sarah. Off you go. So the first thing that we have is we have the ability to chat and we have the ability to do video calls. You're in one now, but you can also get your telephony set up to Teams. That is, you can be picking up Teams calls from, a handheld device and, set up Teams meeting rooms and all kinds of things, but definitely calls. You've also got the chat as well. So the chat is embedded right across Teams and the different places in Teams. And then it's the teams themselves, right? So the environment that you build for collaboration. What we do, though, is we bring your whole Microsoft 365 experience into Teams. So you can have Word in Teams, Excel in Teams, PowerPoint in Teams, SharePoint in Teams, Stream, Power BI, Forms, etc. Everything can be inside Teams from your 365 experience. But then you can also bring in a whole series of other apps, third-party apps, things like Wakelet, Flipgrid, Quizlet, Wikipedia, Kahoot. You can even bring in your Google Drive space into Teams, and of course everybody's favorite, YouTube. So apps are being built for Teams all the time, and I want you to think about it like you've got universal apps for your iPhone, you've got universal apps for your PC and your Mac and all this kind of stuff, and we're building specific apps for inside Teams. So Teams is this hub. It's almost like it's its own little world, its own little device. And then, of course, from an education perspective, you can bring in your assignments and other bits and pieces as well, so for learning. So Teams for educators. As I said, we're not going to do a deep dive. We'll do a deeper dive in the eLearning Leaders time. But let's talk about how we get Teams. There is a desktop app for Windows, for Linux, and also for your Mac. Okay, so you can get a dedicated app. You're going to get usually the best experience coming through on that. Because it's just got more RAM, more memory, more space. But we do have a dedicated app for your tablet device, whether you're on an Android or an iOS tablet, and then the same goes for your phone. The phone is amazing what it can do for Teams, because as far as a communication platform for chatting, for sharing files, all that kind of stuff whilst mobile and whilst on the go is really cool. And the other thing that I like about it is that you can set quiet hours, which means that after 5 o'clock, Teams stops talking to you, or before 8 o'clock or whatever it is that, you want to set as your quiet hours. So, in terms of wellbeing and mental health, we certainly don't want, to be overwhelmed by the fact that you can be always on, but you can be on when it's convenient to you, and you can also set hours to be switching it off, right? You don't have to uninstall from your phone every time you get jacked off, which is what happens with Facebook, right? You had enough of Facebook, you got to uninstall it from your phone. Whereas here we can sort of set quiet hours and that kind of thing. There is browser versions as well, so you can come through your browser, whether you're on Safari, Edge or Chrome, and that's a very similar experience to the desktop app, but not quite as feature-rich and not quite as fast. And we can get Teams by just going to aka.ms/get Teams on whatever device you want to download from. Remembering if it's on your Android or Apple device, iOS device, then you can go to the App Store or the Play Store. Otherwise, you can download it from a website. So, as I said, not doing a deep dive into the school one, but I did want to share with you a little bit about what we have learned as we've gone along. Now, I've been working with schools now around Teams for a couple of years, and I throw this out to you as my advice. Please take it, adapt it, adopt it and adapt it and make it your own. But this being said, this is what I have found to be a really good structure for school teams, and this is meaning between staff and out to kids eventually. But let's have a look at a primary school structure first. So what we suggest first is you create an all-staff team. That is everybody that works in the school, from the lunch lady to the principal, to the groundsman, to the literacy coordinator. Everybody is on this team. It's a central place for staff to communicate and collaborate. It's a location for secure file storage and sharing. So basically your shared drives come into Teams. And so you don't need to worry about operational expenditure and capital expenditure on keeping those running anymore, because Microsoft do all the work for you and the department pays for it. So yeah, file storage. And then you've got channels inside the team to focus on the different domains of interest, right? So again, this is what it looks like in a primary school. And I would even say that your year level groups, what I mean is your year level teams, meaning your teacher groups, will be in here as well, which is different in secondary. Leadership is another team. So this is a team away from the all-staff team. It's a central place for leadership to communicate and collaborate. Probably the principal's assistants, the business manager, those kinds of people as well, right? It's a location for sensitive file storage and sharing. Same level of security, it's away from everybody else so people can't accidentally stumble on it and stumble on some of those documents. And then you've also got the ability to set up private channels to ensure confidentiality for specific topics. You can do that in here as well, but we recommend this is more about collaboration and being open. Here is when you want to start locking things down. So in here, for example, you might have an HR channel, you might have a school review channel, you might have a finance channel, and not everybody in that team needs to be in those channels. So you can start to lock those channels down. When you're dealing with all staff, and in here it's a handful of people, but when you're dealing with all staff and you're starting to lock down channels, it can be very problematic and you forget who's where, and people stumble on files, and it's anyway. And then the last thing we've got, the third type of team we have in a primary school is we have a class team. So that's a central place for the personalised teaching and learning. So it's where the kids are doing their learning, their engagements. It's a location for curriculum resources, learning engagements and assessments. And it's also good for the support for distance and online delivery, but also hybrid, meaning, a combination of face-to-face and online learning. So good for homework and weekend work and that kind of thing. And so every single class would have their own team. And then the specialists would come inside that class, right? So what I mean by that is you might have, 3B might be a class, you might have 3A, B, and C. 3A will have their own team, 3B will have their own team, 3C will have their own team, but they will have a space for not just literacy and numeracy and social studies and science, they'll also have a space for PE, they'll have a space for music and art and those kinds of things as well. So the teachers will have multiple teams, but the students are only going to have their one team that they're a part of. All right, so it keeps it really simple. And then, of course, without boring you too much, it's sitting on all that Microsoft 365 goodness. Okay, it's cloud-based, it's secure, it's compliant, it's sitting in the department space, and that's what a primary school structure might look like. Now, what a secondary school structure would look like, a bit different. First of all, we do have an all-staff space, and everybody's a part of that, but we probably wouldn't have dedicated. Well, we won't have dedicated learning teams in here. We'll come to that in a minute, but you might have year levels in here. So, where the year sevens can, seven teachers can talk about their camps and all that kind of stuff, but it's not, the faculties of maths and science and all that. then they haven't got their spaces in here. They're still members of this, so they can collaborate with everyone, but that's not where the planning happens. We've got a leadership team, again, very similar to what we saw before, but where it breaks away is now we've got what I was talking about before, we've got faculty teams. So this is where you would have, because of the level of granularity that's needed, you will have a dedicated team. So you might have maths 7 to 10 team, and then you might have a maths SACE or a maths VCE team, right? So you've got 2 teams for maths. And you would decide what you need. You may just put them together into one. You may have a reason why you need 4. But our advice is as fewer teams, as fewer channels as possible, so it's easier for people to navigate. The English faculty would have their own team. And that's, again, because of the level of granularity that they need, because you've got, year 7 maths, year 8 maths, year 9 maths, year 10 maths. Then you've got all the SACE and VCE branches of maths, all that kind of stuff. It's just going to be too crowded in here to do that. All right. So whether you're an R to 7 or whether you are, whether you're an R to 12 or whether you're a 7 to 12, it'll be very, very similar. Or then you might want to break your the junior school into a primary style setting, and entirely up to you. Anyway, let's keep going. And then, of course, you've got the class teams. But the class teams are going to be very different in secondary because the students are going to have multiple teams. They're going to have a maths class team, an English class team, a science class team, because they're going to different teachers, different cohorts moving around, etc. All right. So you can see there that the basic architecture or the basic structure is very different. Sorry, I shouldn't say very different. It's very similar, except for when we get here into this faculty breakaway, and it all sits on the same foundation. All right, so that's what it looks like. And as I said, I'll show you when you come into the e-learning leaders. I'll show you models. We'll go in and explore demo versions of that and see what it looks like. The teams for students. So when we think about teams for students, actually, let me stop before I jump into that. Does anyone have any questions about the school teams, the whole school teams? Is that how you go for it?
Sorry. Do you know of any sites that also have teams for their governing council or other sections? Or is it only departmental? Yeah,
see, in the South Australian department, you can't bring guests in.
Yeah.
So I'm working with a private school here in Victoria at the moment who have set up a community team, and it's basically for parents, school council, all that kind of stuff, and they have their own dedicated team that they can come into. But unfortunately, the Vic department and South Australia department has switched that off, and you can't bring guests in.
Okay, no worries.
Good question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Is there anything, is that similar, those of you that have set up their school teams, is that similar to what you've started to do already? Yep, Mitcham High, Mitcham Girls High are nodding their heads. Yep, okay, cool. All right, very good. All right, well, let's keep going then. So building blocks for learning. So what we can do with Teams and some of our other apps makes Teams a really good place for learning. Let's be realistic. We're looking at probably grade 3 to year 12. We are, whilst I have seen Teams work successfully in R or P to 2, and please don't be turned off. Don't think I'm saying to you it can't work. It can. There's a really good Facebook page called Teams for Littles, not Little E's, Littles. Teams for Littles. So if you're wanting to see what it looks like in a primary and also a lower primary setting, go ahead and join that that Facebook group. Yeah, and there's some people doing some really good stuff in there. But largely because of needing one-to-one, being able to have devices at home, yeah, you're really looking at about grade 3 and up. But you can put your course materials on there. You can of course create your classes. You've got video content that can be brought into Teams, and you can also be recording your lessons like we're recording this now. We've also got a lot of inclusive features. Again, if you want to, I'm not going to unpack that today. Please come to the Inclusive Classroom workshop if you want to see how that works. But the cool thing about the inclusive learning is it's all there by default. We're not having to switch things on. And so the student can definitely personalize their experience. Assignments, of course, as well. And being able to, Forms isn't in there, but Forms is also an assessment tool. And then calendar and planners can be linked to Teams. And then lastly, we've got the Insights, which is fairly new. We're going to have a look at that today. We've got the ability to collect data and analytics. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a teacher, and I admit I stepped out of the classroom at the end of 2015, but to me, data was a dirty word, because all data meant to me was work. It meant that I had to collect this data, I had to be throwing it into spreadsheets, etc. And the buzz that was going around for us was, I'm teaching less and adminning and administrating more. I'm collecting data, I'm putting it into spreadsheets, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And yeah, we were losing a lot of our teaching time. And so when I joined Microsoft and we were talking about data for students, data for teachers, I said to the guys in marketing, I said, you got to be really careful, because if you start saying data to some teachers, you're going to switch them off. They're not going to want to know, because their experience of data is just more work. What we have started to do, and remember how I told you Forms will self-mark the assessments and collect that data for you. In Teams, we have an Insights app, which we'll unpack in a minute, which collates that data for you and brings it to you in meaningful ways. Not just grades, but the amount of time that the student is online, connecting to your work, talking with other students, the hours that they are connecting, and it also highlights when they're not connecting. An assignment is due and they haven't even opened the assignment description and things like this. It's really, really quite good, and it's maturing and growing all the time. So so when we start to talk about that, please don't be alienated by the D word. So we create our collaborative classrooms, right? So we're able to stay organized with OneNote class notebook inside of Teams. We'll see how we go. I don't think we're going to get time to really jump into OneNote, but OneNote inside Teams is phenomenal for our engagements and also our ability to organize our content. It empowers the students with the ability to have voice, video and content, but it also has the chat as well, right? So we can be doing, asynchronous and synchronous learning with our kids. And as I said before, we're bringing in all those Office apps, 365 and our files, etc. So when you create a team, you have the option for 4 different teams. My little darling is scratching down here. What's up, sweetheart? Don't chew on that. So you can create a professional learning community team, a staff team, an other team, which is like a generic team, but you can also create a class team, right? Which is what we're talking about here now. A team can support 5,000 members. I'm sure none of your classes are that big, right? But realistically, in terms of using Class Notebook and some of these other features and being able to bring everybody into the video call, you're really looking at about 300 per team. But the basic design, whilst you can use it for an entire year level cohort and stuff, there's nothing to stop you from doing it. But the basic design is assuming that a class team is a class, right? One class of somewhere between, 2 to 45 kids, right? Depending on the size of your school. But it's not going to be much bigger than that. So when you create a class team and you bring students in, that they can't leave the team, so they can't disappear out of the team and you're thinking they're being communicated to and they're not. It is invite only and hidden from others. And as we were talking about before, it creates a class materials folder, which is read only for the students, but read and write access for the teacher. And there we go. The assignments and OneNote class notebook support a maximum of 200. I think that's now 300 students, but nevertheless, if we're going to be using it for assignments and we're going to be bringing them into video chats and all that kind of stuff, this 5,000 is sort of an abstract number, really. Okay. All right. When you're adding your students to your team, all right, so you would create a team, you can add them. You can add them individually, like I did before. You saw me typing the students' names or the teachers' names. I can add them that way. I can also create an invite link send it out to the students. They click on it and they're automatically added to the team. There's also a join code. So I could, at the beginning of the year, I could stand up in front of my class, throw the join code up, everybody joins the team and then they're in, right? So you don't have to be thinking that you have to type everybody in. You can also add distribution groups. So if you have distribution groups that have been set up in your school for Teams, for email, etc., you can be adding them as well. All right, so can I get a show of hands who has never seen Teams before? Okay, a couple, but not many. All right. So, all right, in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into a couple of teams, and I'm just going to give you a very quick run through of the anatomy of Teams. These are all the words I, coming as a teacher, joining Microsoft and joining technology and finding out that software has an anatomy. It's funny, I was watching a documentary. This is while we're waiting for this to load, okay? I was watching a documentary the other day and they're talking about the words for 2021 and they were saying the word was pivot. And yeah, we've been pretentiously using that at Microsoft for a number of years. We also have cadence of meetings. All right, so here we go. So this is what Teams looks like. So when I come into Teams, what this basically is, it's Carmel, is it? Who said she hadn't seen it before? So what this basically is we've taken a social media platform and brought it to work. Okay, so it's a lockdown social media style platform where the best of social media happens inside inside a secure department only space. So you've got an activity feed. Okay, and if I've got, just like when you're on Facebook, all the things that have been, where I've been mentioned or people have sent to me or something, that I'm following, it'll come up here down the, as a feed, and I would click on those just like I would on Twitter or just like I would on Facebook, right? I've got the ability to have private chats with people. I've got all my teams, which is what you're seeing here. These are the different teams that I'm a member of. And just because a team exists doesn't mean that people can join it. I've got my assignments, right across my different teams. If I've got class teams, I've got a calendar which is connected to Outlook. All right, so it's got my full calendar and I can be scheduling Teams meetings in here as well as inside Outlook. I can make Teams calls, video and audio calls. And then here, which is important, I've got files. I've got my OneDrive, okay? So I can bring in my OneDrive is already there. And so I can be accessing my OneDrive files, but look what else I can bring in. I can bring in my Google Drive space into Teams as well. So remember what I said about it's a platform, right? And it's not an exclusive platform and it's an inclusive platform. So I can bring in my own personal Google Drive into here as well and be accessing it from inside here. And then of course, all the files that are available to me through my multiple teams, right? Which I don't use this very much because it's just a lot of files, right? As you can see here. But when I come into a team, and let's come into a class team. Let's go into this one here. So this is a grade 6 team from last year. And you can see that the way I've set it up, I've got these channels. I've got a general channel, which can't be renamed or changed, and it always sits at the top of the list. And my general channel is where I would do, as it says, class-wide. It's not specific to anything down here. This is where I might talk about my excursions or with my kids, or I might talk about, the sports days coming up or something like that, right? That's all happening in the general channel. And you can see that I've got these other channels as well, which I've created, and these ones I can create and rename. So they've got Chinese, and these are in alphabetical order, right? So I've got Chinese, literacy, maths, PE, performing arts, science, and social studies. Now that's what it looks like in a primary class. In a secondary team, class team, you might come in, it might be the maths, and then these might be unit topics, or these might be strands inside the curriculum, or however you want to set it up, entirely up to you. All right, so those are my channels. Now across the top here, I've got what we call tabs. Okay, so I've got posts. Now posts are the chat, just like when you're on Facebook. You start to chat with one another, you can reply to each other, etc. We'll come into that in a little bit more detail in a minute. The other thing I've got over here is I've got my files, okay? So these are files only in this channel, right? So when students come in here, they know there's that class materials one, but they've got stuff that's relevant to them for the general channel. When they come into Chinese, they've got posts for chats, they've got other tabs, but they've got a file section where they can keep, there's probably nothing in here because it's a demo. Oh, there we go. So week 1. So they've got all the files that they need for Chinese, all the files for literacy, maths, etc. All right. So everything is in the one location. But where it's different to a shared drive, right, which some school students have access to a shared drive, is we have the ability to wrap it in posts. Okay. So it's again very much like that Facebook/Twitter experience. So I can be talking to my kids can be talking back. We've got the transparency, meaning that a student asks a question, everybody gets the answer to that question rather than an email, which is, you know, I might send out, answer the same question 5 times by email. Whereas if I switch off email and the kids only talk on here, then they start to see each other's responses and my responses to them, etc. I can also bring in the tabs, right? So we talked about the tabs before. So you can see here, we've got a BBC Chinese Chinese calligraphy video that we got from YouTube, which is sitting there. I can remove that at any time. I can be changing it. So everything that my kids need for their lessons is all in the one location, right? So that's what we're talking about, that hub. Now, let me just give you a little bit of a spiel about what these different things are for. So let's talk about the channels first. So channels are a domain, whether, you know, and depending on what sort of team you've got, all right? But you can add more channels and you can rename channels and you can also show and hide channels, right? So for example, if I'm a student and let's say for some reason, I know this is going to sound like a silly scenario, but let's say for some reason the child doesn't do Chinese, okay, because his parents are some sort of religion and they don't believe in China. So he's not allowed to do Chinese, right? Well, what happens for him is he can click on this here and he can hide the channel, which means that that channel will in a moment appear in his hidden channels down here. Actually, let's jump out and jump back in. Okay, so that becomes a hidden channel. So he can still access it, but it's now, you know, and when we're thinking about staff teams, that's when that becomes a lot more important because we might want to hide a channel or a number of channels because we're not, you know, teaching in that domain. Let me just show that one back for next demo. All right, so that's our channels. Now, when we come into the posts, the files, this is where you would bring your.
Sorry,
yes.
Could I quickly ask you a question?
Please do.
When you add a tab and like all the apps come up that you can select from, is that every Microsoft app like available that you could add there?
No, definitely not. We're going to come to tabs in a minute. So if I forget to answer then, remind me, but no, definitely not. It's a lot of our stuff. There's dedicated apps, but not everything, and a lot of third-party stuff as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
When you're thinking about your school team, of course, you would bring your whole shared drive right into this space. But when we're looking at just our students, then it's just going to be their files for those dedicated subjects. The posts are really important. If you want to be in a conversation, you would go into the domain that you're looking at. So let's say we want to talk to the kids about maths. I would click on the maths channel, and then I can start to, hi guys, blah, 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 blah. And then I can post that in there for them. But it's just like social media. If I want to start looking for people, I want to get their attention. Let's say in particular, I want to bring the attention of the entire class. I can @mention the team, and now all students will get a notification because it's been highlighted to the entire group. But I may just want to @channel just the channel that I'm in, so @maths, and then only people following that channel will get the notification. But I can also look for specific people, right? So @mention Dan, Dan's one of my colleagues, I can highlight that and then he will get a notification as well. So think of it like I can do specific emails to one-on-one, I can do to groups, and I can also do to my entire faculty, right? So you may want to determine, you know, sort of policies around that, but in working with the students, it's also really good because you can target those specific kids that you're wanting to bring this to their attention, but it's still where everybody can see it. So if everybody, so if other people have those questions, they're getting them answered as well. All right. We've also got the ability to do, I'll click on here, you can format. So, bold, underline, italic, highlight, throwing in links. We also have the ability to, well, let me just start typing. Actually, that's not going to work there. I need to start a new conversation. So start a new conversation. I can do an announcement. All right. So making an announcement, you can start to use different graphics and fun stuff as well. So what I did was I clicked down here on the formatting, and then I went into announcement. And I can also set that. Do I want people to reply or only teachers, etc.? And I can also post in multiple channels, not just for my announcements, but for anything. So if you're using Teams and going into grade 5 and saying it, then going into grade 6 and saying it, you can actually post in multiple channels across multiple teams. All right. And so that's what that looks like there. Coming back to the tabs. So yes, you can add tabs. Let's jump in and have a look. So here I am in the general channel here. When I click on plus, it opens up my tabs. Okay. It's going to bring up your Microsofty education-y style ones first. All right. And then any others that you've happened to add. And then you've got a whole heap of apps down here which are education related, but you can search for others as well. All right, so I can start looking for it if I can't find it. So there's the Insights tab, or I might be looking for YouTube, for example, and then by activating those, they will be added to your list up in the top here. All right, in your recent. Okay, does that answer your question, Lorena?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. So you can see that what I've done here, I've got my class notebook, right? So it's created by default when I open up my class team. I've got the assignments in here. I've got my grades for my subject as well. As a teacher, I see that. Insights we're going to come back to. But you can see what we've done here is the school has a learning management system, an LMS, which happens to be Compass, but it could be whatever you're using. And because it's just a web portal, we can bring that into here as well. All right, and you can see that this teacher's also got their learning engagements. So they've got an adjectives activity and other bits and pieces. Remembering there's none of these, well, I shouldn't say none of these, post files, class notebooks, assignments and grades are static. They don't change for a teacher, but all these other ones can change. And when you get too many to come across here, you get a little drop down, 1 more, 10 more, whatever, and they're in there like that. Okay, any questions about that? Nope. Yep.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it working?
Yep.
Okay, cool. You haven't, I don't know if you have talked about this, I maybe missed it, but so you do all of these teams, say like for me it'd be year 9 food and technology, the semester's finished. Is there a way that you can sort of transfer all of those resources and the way you've set up that digital classroom and just push it over to the next semester? Or do you have to do it all over again?
No, you can. Yeah. Okay. So you can use a template. When you create a team, it asks you if you want to create it new or create it from an existing class as a template. So you could look at your old class and use that as a template. What's not going to come across though are all the files, but you can bring your team into your file manager, which is another story, and you can drop and drag all the files across. So yeah, and it'll even copy your class notebook across as well. I'll share some links with you on that if you want as we go on. Okay. Cool, McCool. All right. So managing your class team. Yep, please.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question as well?
Go for it.
You know how there's like a OneNote app that you can add to a tab?
Yep.
Why would you do that if there's already like the class notebook there and you can open it in your desktop app? Like, would there be a benefit of doing that?
Yeah, definitely. So when you create a normal team, there is no OneNote created. Okay, so that's giving you the option of if you wanted another OneNote right? So for example, I might set up a OneNote page or a OneNote notebook specifically for my class. It's not a class notebook, right? I have the option to do that, right? But the other thing is to note is the class notebook is integrated with assignments and other features inside Teams. The OneNote that you bring in, it doesn't have that integration, okay? And there's going to be times where that's what you want. So I could have a class notebook, for example, like here's my class notebook and that's living here in my team, but I might have another notebook which isn't part of the class notebook that I want to bring in, so I could bring that in as another tab. Okay. And yeah, like some teachers, they want to use Teams, they don't want to use the class notebook. They may want to use a more generic notebook. Yeah, so it's up to you. It's choice for you.
Is there a class notebook? Oh, sorry. Yeah, you've got to turn off it. Oh, I'll go on the other.
Right, you go. Yeah. Is the class notebook, is that OneNote class notebook or is it just?
It is, yes, it's OneNote class notebook.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So for those of you that want to explore OneNote class notebook, can I recommend, as a matter of fact, I'll just show you really quickly. If we go to education.microsoft.com, back to these courses, same is true for Teams, same is true for anything. But if I was any of our apps, but if I was coming into training and coming into learning paths, so education.microsoft.com, training, learning paths, we've got OneNote. We have what's called the OneNote Teacher Academy. This will teach you everything you need to know about using OneNote and OneNote Class Notebook with your kids. Okay, you don't need to wait for a Microsoft course to be run. You can go in there and do it yourself. All right, and the same with Teams. Master Microsoft Teams for remote learning, and also the Office 365 Teacher Academy also has how to use Teams and how to set up class teams and all that kind of stuff in there as well. All right, so those two in particular, let me go back. I would be looking for the OneNote Teacher Academy and the Office 365 Teacher Academy if you really want to be a gun at this stuff. A lot of the courses in here are in here and here, you know, you work it out. You don't have to do them twice. Okay, so managing your team, you can set the permissions of what the students are and aren't able to do. So when you set up your team, you click on next to the team name, you click on the little dots, manage your team, and you can go in there and play with the settings, all right? You know, like just disabling them from creating tabs and, you know, creating channels and deleting your channels and all that kind of stuff as well. Another thing that I really want to stress is your Teams notifications. You do need to make sure that you set your notifications and your students set their notifications, because otherwise, if they're getting too many, it becomes white noise and they'll switch off. If they're not getting enough, well, they're not hearing what needs to be said. So the settings are found, let me show you. The settings are found when you're in Teams. You click on your little person up here, come down to settings, and your notifications are over here. Another thing is set your English language to Australia. Keyboard remains as US. That way, when it speaks to you, it'll speak with an Aussie accent, which is nice. And you can, you know, set your dark mode and your grid mode and all those kind of things, but notifications are over here. All right, so again, I clicked my name, settings, and then come into your notifications, right? And you can see that since I made my slide on notifications, it has since changed. It doesn't look like that anymore. It now looks like that. All right, but go in there and have a play with that. Just make sure that you're not getting too many announcements or too few. And that's a personal thing. I can't tell you what do I recommend. I'm now at the point where I don't get notifications at all because I live in Teams. All right, being a Microsoft employee and work I do with schools, I'm in Teams all the time. I don't need to get notifications. But I still, of course, the activity feed notifications I do, but I don't get emails or anything like that anymore because it just becomes white noise and people will switch off. Okay, Teams meetings. Right, now, Teams meetings are not just, especially in a secondary context, it's not just about lockdown, okay? Because students can be using this in small groups. You can be using it with group work outside of lesson times and that kind of stuff as well. So I'm just going to go really quickly, and I'm sorry, Carolyn, for keeping you up. No, don't be sorry. So you can schedule meetings in your calendar. You can have 300 students having the video on at once, but remember, we can only see about 50 of them at once, all right? You've got the 7x7 view. You can record the meetings, live English captions, all right? It's great for hard of hearing and EAL contexts, but soon we'll be having translation, real-time translation. And if you haven't seen the real-time translation in things like PowerPoint, etc., it'll blow your mind of how good it is. It's excellent. The ability to chat, of course, which we've been using today. You can share your screen and content. You've seen that. Mute, change your status, remove participants. I could be kicking you out now. You can have a background image and blur your background image, raise hand, and you can also have group work in breakout rooms. So I could set you all into breakout rooms now. You would automatically be thrown into your rooms. I can send you announcements and messages and automatically bring you back into the main call. It's very, very cool. But it's not just about lockdown and remote access. We can be using this in a hybrid way, right? So when kids are across campuses and other things as well. You've seen, I'm not going to bother showing you the together mode. You've seen that today. I already took you through. Oh, it's going to play itself anyway. The other thing to remember is that it records meetings and classes, okay? It will automatically upload to Stream or OneDrive. We're in a bit of a layover time at the moment where it used to be in Stream and now it's going to be started to put into people's OneDrives. Yours may be in either or. I don't know what's going on with your tenant at the moment. But nevertheless, what I'm saying is it's recorded and those recordings can be shared and made available to your students. It even creates a searchable transcript. So when you play it back, it will actually have a transcript next to the video and the student can actually scroll through, find the piece of text that they're interested in, click on that and the video will start from there. You can also, when you go back to the recording, you can embed assessments and forms and other things in there as well. At the moment, the closed captions, I said before they're only English. That's because we're speaking English, but if you were speaking Mandarin, Japanese, French, German, Spanish, and Portuguese, it will caption but not translate. Okay, so I hope that's clear. The team's assignment experience, again, go and do the courses that I've shared with you, the learning paths to really get in and learn how to do this, because I've only got you for a short time, but you can set your assignments. So it's very much like a learning management system. So you can set your assignments, you know, throw in your title, set your instructions in there. You can add resources, Word documents, YouTube clips, you know, PDFs, etc. You can set the number of points. You can create a rubric, which is really good practice, with success criteria that they can see before and after, and then you can use it to mark. You can decide where you're going to assign it to. You can set it to all students, or you can differentiate to groups of students and individuals, and turn it in. Those of you that have done university recently will know that when you do an assignment, it's like a plagiarism checker. This is actually a paid service though. It's available, but you have to activate it through a paid service. But anyway, that's the team's assignment experience. If we had more time, I would take you through and unpack and show you what that all looks like, but please go back and do those courses, right? You've got the grade book as well. So you can see these are the different, this is in AP English, so you can see the different assignments that have been set. I can look at my entire cohort and I get a cumulative score for their assignments that they've done. And I can see who's doing what. And then I can go down at a, drill down to an individual student level. So I come into Juan and I can see all his assignments. I can see what's been missing, what he's turned in late, etc., his scores, and I can give him specific feedback. Now, I can obviously give him feedback on his original assignment, but I can give him ongoing feedback through this as well. Now, Insights, which is a tab that you can add to your class team. It is not there by default. I'll show you what I mean. So when I come into the general channel, I have actually put in the Insights tab, and if it's not there, you can click on the plus over here. This is what I was talking about in terms of data. Now look what happens, right? If I've got my students working in teams, right, not necessarily working in videos, but just working in the class team, and working in Microsoft 365, this is the kind of data that I can get back. So Spotlights is going to tell me this is the stuff that the AI, the artificial intelligence is saying, Troy, this is the stuff as a teacher you need to know. For example, that I'm not looking for. Alex Wilbur wasn't active at all last week. Right, now I may know that, but this is telling me, right? 40% of your students are working on assignments late at night. See what I mean? It's taking that data and it's bringing to us in meaningful ways. Oh, are they? Right, so I might need to have a chat with my kids about time management. Your Shakespeare plays discussion that you had online, 29 students participated in that. I can go in and see who's doing what, right? And that might be a huge number, that might be a low number. Ella Taylor hasn't started the Comedy of Errors assignment yet, which is due in a very short period of time. Okay, let's send a message to that student, find out what's going on. It's kind of exciting, right? Just by doing our learning experiences within Teams, this stuff is there by default, okay? So that's my Spotlight. But it will also bring these 4 areas to me, which I can drill down. Digital activity, understanding how your students engaged with the class material during the day. Communication activity, how they're talking to you and each other. Assignment status and also their grades. So let's drill down and have a look. So when I come into digital activity, it's going to tell me what time of the day were the students logged in to my learning engagements. And that's not just in Teams. If they open it in Teams and then they start working on it in Word or PowerPoint or something like that, it's going to record that for me, right? So it's telling me who's working when, all right? So that's really important data. Communication, how often, it's not going to tell me what they're saying. I can't see their private chats, but it's going to tell me how often are they chatting with me? How often are they chatting with each other? How often are they instigating chats, right? And how often are they responding? So that's another level of engagement, right? But it's showing me that communication that's happening. And if you've ever done any sort of, university lately, when teachers sort of put up discussion for you and they say, oh, you have to do this discussion, for a teacher to actually look at that and go, okay, this person actually started the discussion. This person was, responding to everybody. It's really important data. Again, we could see before the assignments, right, through the assignments tab, but we can also get information through insights, which is going to tell us where they're at with their assignments and give us some analytics on that. And then their grades as well, right? So different to the grades tab up here, this is giving me sort of more analytics, different analytics data around those grades. So definitely can be used, 3 to 12. I don't know how useful this would be sort of P to 2. Did you have a question, Stacey? You're on mute.
Yeah, Fee and I do. Yeah, you said before that you can't access the private chats. Is there a way to see what kids, just in case kids are saying the wrong thing? The
department can, but you can't. So, and that's to your advantage because you don't have to monitor it and you're not held accountable to it, but the department can access. So for example, if a charge of bullying was levied, leveled by one student against another, the department could open those chats and look, right? But no, you can't yourself. But thank God for that, because otherwise, if you could, the next thing you know, it'd be another job that you'd have to do on a weekly basis.
Yeah, so that's just educating the kids about what to write, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but reminding them that it is there and it is recorded and yeah.
Yeah, so that cyber safety chat is really important to have with the kids around.
Yeah, maybe some more cyber etiquette than safety because it's still in the department space. But that's in chats, right? But when we're in the posts, right? Remembering chat is a private chat, but when we're out here in posts, you have the control of that because these are public, right? Let me jump in here. So these chats are public. And you can go back and obviously scroll through all those, but you can also determine whether kids can edit their chats, their posts, whether they can delete their posts or not. These are all recorded at a department level, but you have a superficial view of those, right? And a superficial control. So what happens is, kids can be swearing at each other and then deleting it, and then they'll say, no, I didn't do it. and then you don't have access to it. But you could actually switch it off that they can't edit or remove their posts, and then they're held accountable. So I hope that makes sense. Ooh, okay, where are we? 2:15. So I said we were going to finish between 2 and 2:30, didn't I? So we're nearly there. So I would often take you through and show you what is really cool about the stylus and the utilization of the stylus. There is a lot of, but I'm not going to, but I will say there is a lot of research evidence to support the idea that the pen is mightier than the keyboard. So bringing a digital stylus to their devices opens up the power of the PC, you know, having video and audio and all those kind of cool things, but also bringing the usefulness of managing, organizing their thoughts and all that kind of stuff with pen. Travis will unpack this probably in some detail in the leaders forum of the STP, and I'll do a little bit in the e-learning leaders as well. Okay, but we sort of run out of time. Well, not sort of, we have run out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this up, guys. I just want to remind you that there are a number of other workshops. There's a leadership workshop, which is usually for executive leaders, business managers, curriculum leaders, those kinds of people in the school, assistant principals. So if you are one of those people, please make sure that you're a part of this, because this is when we start to talk about vision and strategy and that whole school approach. All right. So again, business managers, principals, vice principals, curriculum, you know, whole school curriculum leaders, those kinds of people. Then we've also got the e-learning leaders day, or 2 days. And that's where you will unpack a lot of this. Some of this will be the same, but we will go deeper. It's over 2 days. You create a project that you will begin to work on in those 2 days, but then you will take that back to your school and you will start to roll that out to your school. So whether that's a little pilot project, you might want to work with just the Year 7 teachers around Teams, or you might want to be, you know, doing something bigger. That's entirely up to you what you choose. But yeah, it's really the legs of the STP, because it's where we start doing. The other one is the inclusive classroom, which is all about learning support. And then you've got the IT pros. The other one that I said was just announced is the Minecraft Day. That is optional, but you do need to be sending people to all the rest of them. Okay, that's except for this one, which was also optional. Please remember education.microsoft.com. This has just been, you know, if you came here thinking that you were going to walk away after a few hours mastering Microsoft in education, sorry. But what I do suggest is go back and start to do some self-directed learning, all right, in things that are grabbing your attention. I wish I could have shown you forms today. We ran out of time. Please do a search for forms assessment. There's a really good course. It's going to save you lots of time, and yeah, it's really cool. But again, jump back into that and have a look.
Troy, can I just ask you a question about the Education Microsoft page?
Please do.
So when we go in and we're searching for courses, then we find, you know, several courses that we want to do. Is there a way that we can actually kind of enroll and save them so that we can go back and move through them? Because I just haven't been able to work out how to do that.
Yeah, so when you've signed in and created an account, you should be able to favorite them. And unless it's changed recently, I'm not signed in, so I can't see whether you can favorite, but there used to be a little love heart that you could sort of click and then you'd have your favorites list. If not, then the best way is to move through them as a learning path and stick to the learning paths.
Okay, because I've found that when I've started a learning path, it doesn't seem to save my progress anywhere.
Oh, okay. So have you signed in?
Yep, signed in.
So when you come back, actually, let me take you in and show you what it looks like. This is one that this is the actual account that I use. Let me come in here. All right, so I'll sign in. When I come to the landing page, okay, when I scroll, when I come into, let's come into, say, courses, it will start to organize them for me, or it used to. Oh, sorry, this has changed recently, so I'm a little bit, oh, see here, progress?
Yeah, okay.
So the ones that I haven't started, the ones that I have, that I have started, and the ones that I've completed. So it'll keep a record.
Oh, okay.
Okie doke. And depending on what I filter, so if I look up teams, then it will show me the teams ones that I've started, the team not started, the teams ones that I have started, the teams ones that I've completed. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, they change. You know how it is with tech. They change this like, you know, every 3 months, and then I have to learn how to do it again.
No, thanks for that.
Cool. All right, so that's education.microsoft.com. Please use that and tell your friends, and also let them know that they get VIT. And for those of you that don't know, Victorian Institute of Teachers, which is our TRB, and TRB recognition for these courses. The other thing I want to encourage you is please think about joining the Innovative Educator Expert Program. We've got so many Victorians, so many New South Welsh, so many Queenslanders, a whole heap of WA. We have very few South Australians, right? So we would love to have you in. Lorena, you can come in as well. But we would love to have you join our program. And it's very rewarding. There's so much that goes on. This isn't a metric. I don't get, you know, more money for getting you to join. I promise you, those of you that enjoy technology, you're going to really enjoy this program, right? Apple have one too. I think they're called Distinguished Educators. Google have one as well. And there's nothing to stop you from being a member of multiple programs, right? But we'd love to have you in ours. I have a series of webinars that I have made. My webinar, my YouTube channel, aka.ms/TroyYT. I'll put that in the chat. aka.ms/TroyYT, which is Troy YouTube. Visit that. You'll see there's different playlists. I've got a dedicated Victorian department, South Australian department, and then I've got ones for different areas. Ones around special needs and all that kind of stuff. So if you've liked what I've done today, and I haven't been too pretentious, please log in and enjoy those, right, and watch them in your own time. So that's there for you as well. And then lastly, I am on social media. These channels are dedicated to Microsoft Education and education in general. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Hoju Saram. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Facebook. You'll know it's me. If you just search for Troy Waller on any of those, you'll know it's me because you'll see this little avatar here. The reason I'm suggesting that is not because I want to get in and see photos of your cats and dogs, but because I will do the legwork for updates, latest, greatest features and things that have come into Microsoft. I will push those out and they'll just appear randomly on your feed, right? So, you know, you'll be on Facebook one day and there'll be something pops up from me saying that there's a new feature, things that you didn't even know that you didn't know, right? Will come up. So love you to connect with me. I'm very active on all three, but tends to be, this is more sort of around that sort of digital technologies. This is the kind of people that I hang out with on Twitter, and this is everybody else tends to be Facebook, and this is more sort of leaders and business and that kind of stuff as well. So feel free to jump into all three, but whichever one suits you. And on that note, at 2:21 or 1:51, I'm going to call it a day because I bet you would like some time back, and I don't want to sit here looking at your lovely faces much longer either. So if anyone has, I'll hang around for a little bit. If you have any questions you want to ask me, I'll stay here and be here for you. Otherwise, drop off, enjoy. Hope to see you at some of these other STP days, and hopefully we can do some good things in your school. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sayonara. Like I said, hang around if you've got some questions. Otherwise, we'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks, Troy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Troy.
No worries.
I've got a question.
Yes, please.
How do we get access to the recording of this workshop?
Okay, good one. So I have recorded it, the 3 sessions, and I'm going to give those to both people from the department, from the 2 departments, and then they will notify you of the report.
All right, thank you so much.
The other thing is they may appear in the chat here at some point later on, but nevertheless, I'll make sure that they get to you.
Thank you.